Hi guys, it's Katie. I'm going to try to do a quick meal prep today. These are the things that I want to make. I also have like simple things like I want to clean up lettuce and some other little odds and ends and things like that. But these are the things that I want to make. So I want to make a homemade Catalina salad dressing for our taco salad. I've never made this before, but I will link the recipe that I use down below. Also want to make barbecue sauce because we have barbecue chicken. I want to make some tortillas. I have a sourdough tortilla recipe on my channel. I didn't mix up any sourdough yesterday and I kind of want to just get them done. So I'm going to show you another recipe where you don't use sourdough. You just mix it up and roll them out and cook them on your griddle. Mayo and pizza sauce. I have recipes for both of these on my channel as well. So I won't probably go into too much detail about these things that I already have recipes on. But maybe it'll give you an overview of the things that I'm doing this week, give you a little motivation to get in your kitchen and get your week started off right. So for the Catalina and the barbecue sauce, I need to make ketchup. Well, you're supposed to have ketchup and I didn't buy it, so I don't know. I don't like ketchup, but I do use it for a few recipes. So I don't like buying it. It's one of those things where I never think of it and then I never have it on hand. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make some ketchup, especially since I'm just going to use it as an ingredient and it's going to get further flavored. I feel like I'll just make it from scratch. So I have a recipe I pulled up on All Recipes. Looks pretty simple. I'll show you how to make it. Okay, so this recipe calls for 12 ounces of tomato paste, so that's 2 of these smaller cans. It also calls for half a cup of frozen apple juice concentrate thawed. And I don't have that, but I do have this, which is basically apple juice concentrate. This is leftover from when I processed a bunch of apples making applesauce. So I saved this. It's been in my freezer. So I'm just going to measure out. Yeah, that's nearly the whole thing. So that's good. Clean that out of my freezer and we'll put that in. Calls for 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. I'm going to use apple vinegar just because it's in this more manageable size bottle. Otherwise I have to pull out my big jug of white vinegar, so we'll use that. Some of the comments say it needs a little more zip, so I probably will add a little bit more after I taste it. 3/4 of a cup of water. A teaspoon of paprika. A teaspoon of salt. Calls for ground up thyme. I'm just going to use some thyme from my garden and then I'll probably strain this because I also don't have onion powder, so I'm just going to chop up some onion and add that, and then I'll just strain out the bits so I get a smoother texture. 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm going to eyeball it. That's way too much. It calls for ground allspice. I am going to measure that because I don't want to screw this up. 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground allspice, and I'm actually going to go pretty shy on this because this is allspice that I ground myself from allspice berries and it has a very pungent flavor. So more like a 1/16 of a teaspoon, which I guess is just like a dash. And it calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cumin, which I didn't know there was cumin in ketchup. 1/8 of a teaspoon. I think this recipe you're supposed to just mix it and refrigerate it. Let me see if I can mix it easily. I'm going to have to cook it though because I have the whole onion in there. I'll just simmer it for a little while and then strain it and cool it. I'm going to add a little bit more water to thin it out so that it can simmer without scorching, and then it will reduce. Alright, next up I'll start on the tortillas. Here's my recipe. I'm going to make it half whole wheat, half white flour though. So 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of olive oil, half a cup of water. And you want to add that water at the end, just a little bit at a time. So I have 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of whatever oil you want. I'm using grapeseed oil. Right, and half a cup of water. I'll just put like half of it in, so about 1/4 cup in. And just stir. Put the rest in. So I have a kind of a shaggy dough starting to come together. There's still a lot of dry flour, but I'm going to see if I can mix it in. I've never made tortillas in a stand mixer or anything like that, so I've never tried it. It'd be interesting to find out if it would work. Maybe I should have tried that today instead of just mixing it by hand, but I find most things easier to just mix by hand. But I'm just going to keep it in the refrigerator, and I'll probably roll these out and cook them in the next day or two. I'm just going to put this in a plastic container, like that. And this shouldn't rise up any because it's got baking powder, which doesn't puff up until it hits heat. So I'll just seal this up, and I'm going to keep this in the refrigerator. I need to soak some beans for the taco salad. Never got this kind of lettuce before, but it's really crisp, which I like. But it takes up a lot of room. It doesn't compact down as much as regular romaine, so get my big container out, and it's still seeming like it's not going to fit. Alright, next up I'm going to prep my red cabbage. I'm going to make braised red cabbage. This is a meal that's been on my meal plan for 3 weeks. And I have the cabbage in the refrigerator, and I just keep putting off making it, and I don't really know why. But I'm going to chop up all the veggies for that side dish, so it's cabbage, onion, and apple. That way it'll be all ready to go. I just need to dump it in a pot, fry it up, and then braise it. But yeah, I need to get this red cabbage out of my fridge, so I'll just go ahead and get this all ready to go. That was 1 apple, got 1 medium head of red cabbage, purple cabbage, whatever you want to call it. I have this recipe on my channel already. So all the ingredients I can link to the whole written recipe, but it's just a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of sugar. You can add star anise if you want. And you just cook it down until the cabbage gets really soft and almost velvety. It's really yummy. I really don't want to put this in another container, so I think I'll just keep the onions separate. That has a lid, this has a lid, and that's ready to go. So let's check out the ketchup. It's made a giant mess everywhere, even all up in my wall, so I'm gonna have to clean that up. But it seems like it made ketchup. I tasted it. I did add a little bit more apple cider vinegar, but it tastes like it's gonna be a good base for my recipes. So I'm tempted to immersion blend those onions down into it, but I don't want to wake up my little one, so I'm just going to strain it. I think I'll just pour it into here. So that was a lot of extra work. That was not the most fun thing I've done today. So I have my homemade ketchup. I don't really think that I recommend making homemade ketchup, really. I'm just really stubborn about it, I guess, for some reason. I need a 1/4 cup for the Catalina dressing. The rest, I'm just going to go ahead and make a big batch of barbecue sauce. That way I can portion it out and freeze it and have it for quicker meals. So yeah, I did all of that, and all I need for that recipe is a 1/4 cup. You know, I might also save a little bit of ketchup. I might have Sloppy Joes next week. Since this would make a big batch of barbecue sauce, I'll save probably about a cup and put that in a container, pop it in the freezer, and then I can use that for sloppy joes next week or something. And the Catalina recipe is pretty simple. It's just mixing a bunch of ingredients. So a 1/4 cup of ketchup, 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar, and 1/2 cup of sugar. Alright, so it's 1/2 cup of sugar, and this calls for 1/2 cup of canola oil. And this is making a lot, but looking at the ingredients, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to freeze this. It calls for a teaspoon of paprika. I'm going to go ahead and use smoked, why not? And it calls for onion powder, which again I don't have. I'm just going to omit it because I did put the onion in the ketchup. And then it calls for 1/2 teaspoon of dried celery flakes, which I don't have that either. I do have celery seeds, so I might put that in. Crush it up a little bit. Let the flavors come out and make it a little bit finer. Alright. And it calls for 1/2 teaspoon of salt-free Italian seasoning blend, such as Mrs. Dash Italian Medley. I don't have that either. I'm just going to put some dried thyme leaves. I'll just crush them up in my hand. Oregano, it's fresh. Probably would be better if it was dried so I could crush it up, but we'll make this work. Now I'm just going to stir this up. It's supposed to be done in a blender, probably helps emulsify it. Probably would come together a little bit smoother if I blended it, but I don't want to run my blender right now because my little one is sleeping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this in the fridge as is. I'm not going to use it for a couple days, and I'll just I'll blend it before I use it, so I'll show you what it looks like. But this way at least all of the ingredients can start to sort of marry together. So with the rest of the ketchup, I'll go ahead and make barbecue sauce. I don't really have a recipe, I just kind of eyeball it. But basically, once you have ketchup, I just add some molasses, some brown sugar. You can add garlic and onion, either fresh or powder. You can add like jalapeno, some kind of chili powder or something like that. So mine turns out a little bit different each time, but that's alright. Some molasses, some more sugar, some apple cider vinegar, maybe a little bit more, garlic powder, cayenne, a little bit of smoked paprika, it usually helps if you put 2 different kinds of sweeteners, so either brown sugar and honey, or maple syrup, or regular sugar, molasses. So I'll just put a little dollop of maple syrup in there just to give it some, otherwise it just tastes like sweet, but this way it kind of tastes like 2 different kinds of sweet. I don't know if that makes sense. And again, I don't have onion powder, so I have just grated some onion. So just stir that up and simmer it for a little while. Taste it, see if it needs anything. Oh, I do want to put some smoke. Liquid smoke, it's really good. A good way to add smoky flavor. So a few dashes of that. And I'm just waiting for the rest of my molasses to drip down, and I'll add the rest of that. So I'll just put this on the heat back here and bring it to a low simmer. Alright, next I'm going to make some mayonnaise. I have a whole video on my channel how to make mayonnaise, so I'll just do it real quick. everything for this week's meal plan. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Bye!